Hi, everyone. This is the Leadership with Heart podcast, and this is Heather Younger, your host. Employee experience is powered by emotions. Managers and or leaders within organizations get to choose which emotions they unleash from within the people they lead. Leaders, meaning supervisors or above in an organization, drive much of the positive or negative emotions by their actions or inactions, their words, or what they fail to say. When a manager chooses their words and their actions carefully, they exhibit great emotional intelligence. These managers are often thought of as leaders who care, or as I like to call them, leaders with heart. This special brand of leader drives engagement and loyalty simply by being themselves. Are these leaders perfect? Absolutely not. It is in their awareness and sharing of some of their imperfections that we realize their brilliance. In this podcast, I ask you to see yourself in the stories my guests tell about times when they were not the best versions of themselves, but how they used their hearts to guide them to a place of deeper connection with their teams and heighten leadership prowess. Before we start the show, I wanted to mention that we have a heart-based leadership bootcamp that we are offering. You can check it out at customerfanatics.com/boot-camp. Today, I'm speaking with Christinne Johnson, an amazing leader who is the President of Human Resources at First Bank. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to Leadership with Heart podcast. This is your host, Heather Younger. Today, I am so excited to have Christinne Johnson on the phone with me today. I was really fortunate to be able to meet with her a few times and now to be able to work with her organization and to see the focus that she has on her people, on making a better environment and culture for the employees at the organization she works for. And I just like the energy that and the zest that she brings to it. And she's so focused on leadership. So it's exciting to have you on board on the show here, Christinne.
Thanks, Heather. I'm excited to be here.
So where are you, for the listeners, where are you right now in your leadership career?
So where I am right now, I started with First Bank as a management trainee. We have a promote from within structure in our organization. And so our leaders start at the management trainee level. And so I started there 22 years ago. And today I am the president in charge of the human resources function for First Bank. So it's been quite a journey to get to the point that I'm at today. And if you would have asked me 22 years ago if this is where I would have been, I probably wouldn't have believed anyone. But I'm super excited to be managing this function for our organization.
What I love most about your style of leading and just your thinking, two things. One, I think you're, super strategic, which is it was really needed in the HR space. Often when we see HR, we see them being more tactical, really focused on there's a day-to-day look and not always being able to look down the road and look more globally. And so what I love about the organization and about your style is that you're able to be more strategic, look more globally, think deeper, and not always be as tactically oriented. So I think that's really cool about where you're at right now in your career.
Mm-hmm. It's what drives me. It's my favorite thing. It's what gets me really excited about coming into work every day. I would say I kind of geek out on that strategy and vision and where could we be, and sort of that wonder of what could be possible, what could be out into the future for us. That's what I get super excited about. And I think what got me to being that excited about vision and strategy and looking forward is I've had an unusual career path through the company where I've worked in a variety of different functions and very different functions. And so being tactical kind of got stripped away from me a while ago because I've never stayed in a function long enough to be the good tactical person, I would say. And so being able to go into somewhere new, something that you haven't done before, but know First Bank and just know the company and the organization and know that's been my foundation. And then I've gone into various functions throughout the company with compliance and operations, IT, project management, et cetera. And so getting into HR, it was just sort of like that next thing. And there's so much opportunity for strategy in a function like this that serves the entire organization. So it's really fun.
I love it. Love it. I mean, just gave me goosebumps just thinking that through. I love that. I want to have more HR leaders be thinking more globally and strategic about the role they play in impacting everything, not just the cultural kind of soft piece, but what that bottom line looks like and the shareholder and the stakeholder value and all those things. What role does HR play in that? And those are those larger questions that really they should be tackled, instead of that day-to-day stuff as much as possible. So you in that role is awesome. And I also love the fact that First Bank has that management trainee model where you move up and around and you get the opportunity to reinvent yourself and to learn new areas, and then you're never bored. And so when I think of loyalty and retention, it's awfully hard to want to leave a place where it's like every 2-3 years or whatever it is, you're able to get a new refresh right on your career inside the same organization. It's a great strategy.
Right. It's fantastic. And I'm someone who loves change and new challenge and going up learning curves as much as possible, personal growth, professional growth. I love all those things. And if the model like this didn't exist here, I could have seen myself saying, I want something new. I'm going to have to go to another organization for that. And I didn't ever have to do that because of the way First Bank is structured and the way this program is structured. And the amount of trust that I feel placed in me, to go to a function I haven't, grown up in or managed before and be able to go and lead that function. There's just so much value in that trust that has been placed in me that, there's not a price you can put on that. So
it's kind of an interesting concept. And I talk about this a lot that, how can you expect loyalty from your people if you don't give it to, and it's kind of a two-way street. And from you, how can you expect trust from your people if the organization doesn't show that trust in you? And you just displayed that just perfectly. I mean, more organizations really should set their structure up like this, because those that promote and grow, the people that are inside are going to kind of create more fertile ground, and folks are going to want to stay with them longer. So it makes complete sense. It's just like, duh, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's the lead with trust model. I love that model. I think we exhibit it here in First Bank, and I like to exhibit it in my own approach. Lead with trust. So.
Love it. Love it. Okay. So what is it then that drives you to lead? Some of us, that drive comes from someplace. And maybe it might be naturally who we are. We were born to kind of be that person up front, but it could be something else that maybe happened or transpired in your life that kind of propelled you to be that leader. What would be your reason?
I always grew up just wanting to be good at what I was doing, work really hard at developing myself so I could be better at what I was doing. And there was just sort of this value system ingrained in me as I was growing up of, be the best you can, do the best you can, show up as the best version of yourself. And then I think what naturally happened was I would see situations and see the opportunity in a situation, and I would just kind of jump into the front of that situation because I wanted to naturally, take on sort of a leadership role or, be the person who was like, hey guys, let's get going. I'm really excited about this because I have a lot of enthusiasm about pretty much anything I approach, I feel like. And so that energy has always been there as well. And that was just really instilled in me at a very, very young age. And so that's where I think it comes from, just that desire to not only be the best and continue to look for opportunities to be better, but to envision what's possible, wonderment, that's sort of what could be possible. So.
I love that. Yeah, I love it. And they say that leaders are defined by what people say about them when they're not around. And I was actually having a lunch with a couple of folks that were from your organization. And one of the people at the table, I mentioned something about like my interaction with you or something. And this woman said, oh man, Christine, she is an amazing leader. You do not get any more heart-centered than her. You don't get any more professional than her. And I just was like, well, I love this. I like when I'm going around and meeting with lots of different people. And this is a 2,700 person organization that you're a part of. But for people all around that are not even in your same space to be having these positive comments about you says a lot. So it's just, those are the kind of things that I start to geek out on. You know that about me, so.
I do, and I love that about you. Thanks for sharing that. That means a lot. So
it's awesome. Okay, so now we know that you're an amazing leader, but was there a time, or ever a time, a couple times, whatever, when you felt like you weren't that best leader, like you just weren't so proud of maybe how you were acting, what your decision you made, or whatever? Was there ever any of those, a specific story on that?
Oh, sure. There's plenty of those, I think, because we're humans and I'm a human and I certainly never am perfect. And I find myself, in situations where I go, oh, God, that wasn't the best version of myself. But, I think it's not what we do and not necessarily our experience and what happens to us. It's more how we choose to respond in the situation. And so sometimes when I haven't responded in the best way, then I try to go back and reflect on that and go, okay, what triggered me? What was going on there? And maybe what do I need to do differently? But if I think through that, one that really jumps out at me is was working on implementing a new function for our organization. And my team and I had spent some time really crafting a recommendation for how we were going to go forward with a portion of this big implementation. And it was a project management office we were establishing, and it was new for our organization. So big change, and a little bit of reluctance, of course, in some areas that we were implementing something like this. And my team and I had worked really hard on this set of recommendations. And I go into the meeting with the leadership that I'm presenting these recommendations to, and it's not going well. It's not being received in the way that I thought it would be received. And I'm, of course, super proud and excited about what we're recommending. And then there's sort of a resistance, some reluctance, some criticism that's coming out. And instead of being able to sit back and take that feedback and process it and say, okay, I'm going to take this and figure out how to be better with this criticism I'm getting, which is what I typically very much try to do, I was not my best self. I was so attached to the solution, the recommendation, the proposal, and the way that I was bringing it that I got emotional and I got triggered and I got upset in the situation and didn't respond with my best self. I even had a colleague in the room who I had said, hey, if I start going off course and you see me going off course, can you give me a hand signal? Because I know that I'm attached to this one and I know I'm going to need some help. Well, he was giving me the hand signal and I decided to just stop looking at him. I mean, it was just, it was almost like, you know what, I am upset and I have to let it out. And even my attempts to manage myself in the situation didn't work. And I remember getting to a point in the meeting where I just said, I think we need to stop this meeting because this isn't going well. I'm not responding well. I think we need to end it. And so I left the meeting and I was walking back to my office and I was disappointed in how I acted. Got into my office and immediately my team members that had helped me put the proposal together and who were excited to hear what had happened came right into my office. And instead of doing what I should have done, which was, hey, I need a few minutes and then I'll share with you, because I needed to really kind of, what just happened? Why did I act the way I did? I shared with them. And so, I'm a pretty open and transparent leader, but you have to be careful with how open and transparent you get, especially with your team members, I think at times where you can overshare. Yes. And so I overshared in that moment. And finished that interaction. And then at that point, when I saw the disappointment on their faces, I thought, oh boy, I screwed up in the meeting and now I've just screwed up here. So I really need to take a time out. And so that's what I did. Took a time out, really thought through, okay, why did I act the way I did in the meeting? Why did I just do what I did? And, then went on my quest to go apologize to the individuals in the meeting, bring my team in and say, hey, I was upset after that meeting, and I appreciate that I could share that with you. I overshared a little too much, and here's how I should have shown up instead for all of you. And really, I spent that time going around and apologizing and thinking through what caused me to act the way that I did, and that was really defining for me, because I really do try more now to have that I guess trigger or that pause in the situation when I know that something is starting to trigger me a little bit, and just pause, because I am very passionate. And so passion is good and can also be your Achilles heel if you take it too far.
Oh, isn't that so true? Oh, what you described, actually, I've struggled with that exact thing a few times in my leadership journey. It happens to be the thing that it's always the thing where I struggle with that. I get better with that. Then I go back to that. And it's trying, because I am transparent, and trying not to be overly transparent, and it's not necessarily putting on a smiley face, but it's almost like shepherding my emotions. It's harnessing the emotions, bringing it inward, and allowing myself to reflect first is the thing that the exact same strategy you did is the thing that I struggle to do. And I'm better at it, much better, but I'm definitely not perfect. That's still that kind of one area that I struggle with. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I can just, when you were taking us through that, I could just sense, not only that there was remorse for doing that particular thing, but at the same time, I really appreciated the level of emotional intelligence you brought to that situation. You weren't thinking of that, I'm sure, at that time. But as I listen, I hear all kinds of self-awareness stuff. So in the meeting, you may have been self-aware, but your emotional management was not high. You weren't able to control the emotion. But then after the fact, you started to do, there was that awareness of what happened, an evaluation of what happened. through that kind of almost like it felt like it was conflict, and how are you going to manage through it? And then you said, okay, now I'm going to think about the kind of the social intelligence space. I'm looking at now, how did my actions impact those in the meeting? How do they impact my team? And how can I make this right? And then get better as a leader. So I think in this situation, while I know it started out bumpy and the emotional intelligence may have been low inside that meeting, I think after the fact, you started to kind of unravel and develop more of that emotional intelligence strength through that process. So it's a great story. I'm hoping people that listen really took a lot away from that, because we all struggle with that stuff. We just do.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And what I've tried to work on incrementally in those situations is closing the gap between the awareness and then the reaction. Because sometimes maybe I should put it the other way, the reaction and then the awareness, because sometimes I'll react and then become aware versus how can I become aware sooner, or maybe even before, so that I'm responding instead of reacting. And so I've really worked to narrow that. And that was one where it was like, I immediately knew as I left that I had been triggered and what had happened and all of that. So that was great. But I thought, okay, you still have some work to do. You still got to get it further up in the process here. You've got to have it happen sooner. So.
Yeah, well, in the end, right? Leadership is a journey. This is not a destination. We're in this journey to just get better and better, to be better for the institution, for you, in your case, the whole organization, to be, better for the team, your HR team, and then making sure that you're, serving all of your internal customers. And there's just a lot of facets. And so that's why it is a journey. It's never ending. And I appreciate your philosophy of, be my best, but always get better, because that's really what, when I'm even talking about this leadership with heart, it's not about perfection. It's about a constant journey to improving our leadership skills and how we present to those outside of us. That's the key.
Right. I couldn't agree with you more. The journey piece has always resonated with me. And I think it's even become, things that have happened in my personal life as well as my professional life have really, reinforced that for me. And there are times on a journey where you end up on a detour or you backtrack a little bit, and that's okay. And what I had to learn in all of that, being someone who really always drove myself to be the best I could be, is I wouldn't always have grace for myself when those situations occurred. It was more like beat myself up and be so upset. And what I'm trying to learn as part of my journey is, sometimes you get lost, sometimes you go off track, sometimes you detour, sometimes you backtrack, and have a little grace for yourself, get yourself back on track, and, figure out what you want to do for the going forward. Because at the end of the day, you want to keep pushing forward.
Oh, it's so fun.
Okay, I love the journey analogy.
Well, I love it. And this is, I've relayed this to you before, but hey, I might as well share with everybody that's on here. So, I'm in this whole beach body, like this whole body transformation kind of journey. And this analogy is just 100% holds true to this leadership idea that I'm like going down the road and I'm, consistent and I'm doing all my workouts. And then boom, I see that piece of cake. And then, right. And it's like, ooh. And instead of like going, and wallowing on the fact that I just went off course, I decide, okay, it was good while it lasted. And now I'm getting right back on track and I'm moving forward. And so I agree with you when you said in personal and professional that this philosophy exists no matter where we're at, knowing that it's all a journey. Right.
And some of us maybe are better in our personal lives than in our professional, or vice versa. And they're both equally important to focus on in that same way. So
yeah, that's very true. Yeah. So what do you do that in the times when, because I know things get crazy, there are just a lot of projects, there's people traveling, and you're trying to connect with your people, with your team, and I'm talking about the folks that are kind of reporting to you, or even that indirect, the folks that report to them, just the HR organization. How do you get that, that a connection reestablished when everybody's kind of out of sorts and everything's kind of nuts?
Yeah. So being in the whirlwind is what I like to call it. We get so busy, and we get so busy being busy, that sometimes that can be easily lost. Sort of I'm just going to run from meeting to meeting, and then I'm going to get back and I'm going to focus on returning all my phone calls and all my emails. And I just got to keep checking things off my to-do list so that I feel good about myself. And there are definitely times when I pause and go, wow, I'm in the whirlwind right now. I'm just trying to survive. And I'm just getting whipsawed around, and I am not taking control of my own time and my own situation, and making the time that I need for something that's extremely important, talking with my people, connecting with my people and whatnot. So usually what I try to do is pause, reflect, have some quiet time, and really step back from what I'm focusing on and say, okay, what is important, and kind of reprioritize. And then, try to go, okay, is it so important that I return these emails, or is it more important that I walk over to someone's, desk or office or whatever and say, how is this going? Tell me how are you doing with this? And so I try to do that when I find myself going off course or getting just so caught up. When I have one-on-one meetings with my team, I try very hard to not just jump right in, because if there's a definite tendency not to just jump right in with, okay, where are we at on all these things? How are things going? Let's get through the agenda. Let's get through your list of things and priorities, and what can I do to remove roadblocks and all that? And instead try to just, how are you? How are things going? What's showing up for you? What can I do to support that type of thing?
I love that. Because when I talk about connection, it's not always that we have to do these formal big old team building events, which I'm sure those happen too, but it's in the little things that we create those connections with our people. And when they know we're running like crazy, but they see us pause and stop and come out of our office and sit with them for 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever that might be, or bring the team around at a table and just talk about whatever, instead of, like you said, it being always about a project, that goes much further to bring us closer to them. And when we create the connections, like we are connected to them, they are connected to us, they see that what we're doing connects to what they're doing, then it feels like their work is more meaningful just by the little things. So I think it's great that you just pointed that out. You didn't say you did some huge, big old thing to connect with your people. You just said, as a leader, I decided to have a little bit more control over my basically emotional management, that kind of adaptability, everything that's happening. And I said, I'm going to settle that down. I'm going to focus. I'm going to, look at what's most important and evaluate, okay, from a time management perspective, let me just give my time over here and focus over here another time. I think that's a huge amount of emotional intelligence to just have that ability to stop. I know it doesn't come easily. I know that there's a natural tendency to maybe want to continue to move forward. Most of us have that. But just the fact that you do that, they know it. They see that you're like, oh my gosh, she's gone, like, the last 2 weeks I haven't seen her. And then all of a sudden she's here. And I bet you there's a lot of work that you have to do after being gone for here and here 2 weeks, and,
right.
And you know that you spent the time on them instead. So,
right. Yeah. And sometimes it's just, hey, I feel like I haven't talked to you in a while. What should we catch up on? Because I miss my people when I feel like I haven't had enough time with them. So, and
I love that too. I mean, just a lot of times when I'm speaking or I'm writing, whatever, I talk a lot about my children and then I make that analogy, that stretch right away to leaders and how I am with the people that are on my team that might directly report to me or be on my team. And I think about this word miss. You said I miss my people. And sometimes it's the words, I miss you. And sometimes it's the actions that I missed you. And I know it sounds like just people might go, well, that's just ridiculous. This is a job. I get paid this to go do this thing. And I disagree. I think that the fact that you have that connection with your people, that on a podcast, you're willing to say, I miss my people when I'm away. And they may not say it, but when they see you, their eyes probably light up because they missed you too. It's okay to have that emotion in the workplace. And again, I just think it goes far. That's why the people say the things they say about you, because they know that you have kind of them in mind when you're walking about your leadership journey too.
I'm so fortunate because I have such fantastic individuals on my team and they have such fantastic ideas, and hearing them talk about, hey, I had this new great idea for this, or this challenge came my way and this is how I handled it and just want to let you know, or whatnot. Hearing that nourishes me because it's so exciting to hear, oh my gosh, you've got this fantastic new idea, or wow, that was great how you handled that. It brings me nourishment, and that might be an unusual word to use for that, but it fills me up, and that's why I miss them.
I love that. I love all this language. This is definitely connecting with me, and I'm continuing to geek out because the nourishing part, that this idea of filling people up, I use that a lot when I'm talking about how do you communicate with people. What are you communicating with them in a way that they need to be communicated to, so that you are filling them up the ways they need to be filled up. And so this idea of nourishment, I haven't heard that, but I do love that. It's just really rich. So thanks for sharing that too. And hopefully the listeners can hear that too, that passion that's there. You don't get to where you're at by accident. And it's because you put in all that time to build relationships with your people, to see the value, to grow the value in them. That's the other thing I know about you, is that, when you're growing the value in your people by upskilling them, putting the investment into them so that they can grow and become better leaders, then I can see why you might then feel very kind of proud of that effort, and that maybe you had a little hand in it, that, wow, they're able to do this without me there. They're overcoming obstacles. They're achieving different goals that they set out, and I had very little to do with it, but I maybe opened up a door, or I just had they had access because I was that kind of leader,
Right, exactly. I try to just clear the path and encourage the heart, and then get out of the way, because people want to, excel, and they want to be empowered, and they want to, do these great things. And the last thing I want to do is be in the way of that. And so that's exactly what I try to do, is open up the paths, open up the doors.
Well, so one of the last question I want to ask you, for those, who are listening, there could be some that are on there that just, it could be either in a tough spot in their leadership journey, or just struggling with some of the areas maybe you talked about. What might be just some nuggets or some words of advice you might leave, the last kind of words of advice you would leave for those listening in their leadership journey?
The big one that I always like to offer to others and to myself is have grace for yourself, have compassion for yourself. I think this is a human condition thing, but we as individuals, especially those who are in leadership, because they're high achievers, high performers, striving forward, will have a tendency to want to be perfect all the time, be perceived as being perfect, and we'll give grace to others, but we will have a harder time giving grace to ourselves. And I think when you can give grace to yourself, and when your people can see that you give grace to yourself, then they know it's okay to give grace to themselves. You're sort of modeling that behavior. I think that's really, really important, because this is hard stuff. I think being in leadership is very challenging, because self-awareness is so important, and your own self-development and who you are as a person gets so exposed. And so if you don't have that grace, and you aren't able to exhibit that grace, I think it manifests itself in stress and maybe some anxiety and such like that. So have grace. That's the biggest one. Forgive, have grace, be compassionate. Yeah.
I just love that. I'm learning that as I go in life generally, and I think that is really quite perfect. When I'm coaching leaders, often I'll see that they're just super duper hard on themselves for just whatever, for lots of different reasons, and that's pretty much what I say. It's like the piece of advice that I give them often is to give yourself grace, and to realize that this is not easy. I mean, leadership, they talk about those soft skills in the workplace. Leadership is not something that we can, you just go get a degree and now I'm a leader. It's just not how it works. You have to earn that. It's built up through time. Sometimes it's like that diamond in the rough, and it just has to get polished up by making errors and again, giving yourself grace, and then allowing yourself to, open up to the team for them to see you not as being perfect. So all of these things are just great. I really appreciate all these nuggets that you're giving and have given. And I hope that those who are listening have just taken away a ton from this conversation. So Christine, for those who may have a follow-up question or want to ever get a hold of you, what might be the best way for them to do that?
I would say email. I don't get on social media very often, but I am on my email every day. So I would say my email address. So I'll go ahead and give that. It's christine.johnson@efirstbank.com. And my first name has a unique spelling. So it's CHRISTINE.Johnson@EFIRSTBANK.com.
Awesome. Well, guys, give yourself grace. And if you want to see anything more or learn more about Christine, I will actually have a little bit more about her bio and, of course, her contact information in the show notes for you to review. Thank you so much for joining in on the call and listening to this amazing leader. Thank you for listening to the Leadership with Heart podcast. You can grab the show notes by visiting customerfanatics.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter.